This is the Mariners POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Seattle Mariners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There we go, boys. That is a series win. Yeah. That is a Mariners win. That's a comeback win. That's a walk-off win. That's a small ball win. All the wins you want here. Let's go. All the wins you want. This is your Mariners POSTCAST. Anderson Hirst, Christopher Crawford to my left. We're talking 2 Mariners wins in a row. It's a godsend. Thank you. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how good it feels to get the series dub today, so you can have a chance to go get the sweep on Sunday against this Guardians team. And yes, Brian O'Connell, it was a bunt. It was a bunt. I'm going to say this is not hindsight 2020. Mm-hmm. I told Christopher Crawford before it happened, I was like, if there's one time where you sacrifice bunt, it's when there's first and second, nobody out, and you have your 9-hole up. Yeah. I'm okay with it then. But Chris Crawford, just let us know what you think. We'll go over Kirby's start. Mm-hmm. We're going to go over kind of a pretty poor offensive showing until besides 2 innings, the first inning and the last inning, which I guess that's all you need today. But what are your original takeaways from this one?
Oh, just so big to win a game like this. And look, Emmanuel Clase is not Emmanuel Clase vintage right now, and it's nice to be able to take advantage of that. It was nice to take advantage of a horrific ball 4 call on Miles Mastrobuoni that helped set stuff up.
Truly awful.
Once again, the umpiring is just 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag.
Yeah.
But beggars can't be choosers. And when you've lost as many series as the Seattle Mariners have in a row, which seems like an awful lot, and maybe it's not, or just playing the way the Seattle Mariners are, you take wins like this. And it's great to see a bunch of different people step up. It's great to see a bunch of different people, Dominic Canzone with that big hit in the ninth to get things started. We'll talk about, I'm going to save it for my unsung hero, I think, a huge play in this game.
Yeah.
A so-so start from George Kirby, that you get a win with. You get a win, you get a series win, and now you got to go get a sweep. And I know this is more of the long-term talk. Now you get that chance for the sweep. You can't, obvious point is obvious, but you can't get that chance for a sweep unless you get this type of win. It's huge. It's a huge way to start a homestand that the Seattle Mariners need to go well. And so far, even if today wasn't very pretty for 7.5 innings or so, it was good enough for a W, and I'm pretty pleased about that.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, what you said about, just getting the opportunity to talk about a sweep, that's so huge. I think it takes so much pressure off when you've already won this series and you can just go play loose for that third game. And if you win, you get the sweep. And if you lose, hey, you still won the series. You did your job. Like it's such a weight off the guy. And that's been so long since we've seen that, right? It's always been either you drop the first game and you have to try and come back to win the series in the next 2. Right. Or it's you win the first one and then you drop the second one and then it's always all to play for in that third game. There's just I love the feeling of going into that third day where you've already won the series and then you have a chance to go sweep. I want to start doing something here on the Mariners POSTCAST. We have one of our things we do every day. It's the Unsung Hero. Comment in who you guys think is your unsung hero. There's actually, I think, a fair amount of choices for tonight's game. But I want to do there's a starting pitcher every single game, and I want the first thing after our major takeaways that we talk about to be about the starting pitching performance. So I'm going to call it, let's start with the start for George Kirby. Chris Crawford.
Fine. It was fine. It was some of the worst control that I've seen from George Kirby in a start, not some of the worst command. I thought the command was actually okay. And
2 different things, by the way, in case you didn't know that.
2 different things. The control is not command. Command is not control. If you want a comparison, that'll get me into some trouble. It's kind of like being Catholic and Christian or Christian and Catholic. Control and command are not the same thing, just the way that Christian and Catholic are the same thing. Why not? Why not go there? especially on a day like today. I thought his control was iffy, and he got squeezed a couple of times by a very poor manager, to be fair. I thought he battled, though. I thought he did a really nice job battling. The key to me for that start was only giving up the 1 run in the 4th inning, because we're going really bad in the 4th. To only give up that 1 run now, and then Jose Ramirez was just due to shellac a baseball, and he did, because Jose Ramirez is a really, really
not even a bad pitch.
No, it wasn't a bad pitch at all. It was just a perennial top 5 MVP vote getter doing what he does to tie that game up. I thought George Kirby was fine. It certainly pales in comparison to what we saw in the last start, and we knew we weren't going to get 7 innings, 14 strikeouts, 2 runs, right? But I think against this lineup, we were probably hoping for a little bit better than 5 innings of 2-run baseball. I think that's fair to say. That doesn't mean Kirby was bad. It certainly doesn't mean Kirby was good, but I think it falls closer to disappointing than encouraging, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I just think the first phrase that comes to my head is if you had 2 steps forward in that last start against the Angels, this is 1 step back, but not necessarily like 2 steps back to where you were before. This is just, it wasn't as good as he was last time out, and maybe not as good.
Quick, I'm sorry to jump on you real quick. Definitely a step up from those first 2 starts that he made. Definitely a jump up from that. If we are comparing it to that, then we are talking about great. But if we're talking about vintage George Kirby at his best, that's not where we are. Sorry, I just wanted to make that clear in case I didn't when I was.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Brian O'Connell's mentions here, again, we're starting to see a trend. I don't know if there's anything to do with this, but Cal Raleigh again catches George Kirby and he looks not amazing, but he all of last season and the one really good start that he had was this season was Mitch Garver catching him. So do you think there's any sort of correlation there?
Maybe a little bit. I guess the question is how much correlation is it worth to not have Jorge Polanco or Cal Raleigh in the lineup?
That's a good point.
Because if Garver's playing, then one of those guys is sitting, and I certainly don't want Jorge Polanco sitting, and I don't want Cal Raleigh sitting ever. I want that guy in the lineup as much as possible. So it's just a matter of which one it's worth. If you felt comfortable playing Jorge Polanco at second base today, then maybe you do that, and he has played some second base recently. Yeah. He was a third baseman for about 12 minutes. Let's just get that out of the way. He's not a third baseman anymore. That's not a thing anymore. Jorge Polanco is no longer a third baseman, but he kind of holds his own is the nicest thing I could say about Jorge Polanco at second base. So if you want to consider doing that and giving Cole Young some days off when George Kirby's pitching, okay. It's pretty hard, though. It's pretty hard to justify because Mitch Garver has been inept with the bat and super inept with the bat against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, so let's get to the offense. In the middle, 7 innings, you had not great stuff going on. I was about to say for a while, you only had one. I think you had 7 players who got on base at least twice yesterday. Mm-hmm. Today, you only had 1, and it was JP. I think that's until the last inning, though, because that makes Cal now get on base twice in the 9th inning. So you had
Polanco
2 today.
Also got on twice today as well.
Oh, you're right. For Polanco's hit, make sure he got on. But I just want to go through each inning. Quickly, we'll go through the first inning because I think that gets things started. It feels like a trend this year where the Mariners kind of in the first 1, maybe 2nd inning, their offense looks great, and then they kind of go missing for 6 or 7 innings. But JP singles right off the bat, Julio singles, then Julio steals, and then Cal hits that kind of blooping double into the right field corner. Mm-hmm. And then Jorge Polanco hits a sac fly to make it 2-0. Anything in that first inning you want to talk about before we move to the later
Just part? A couple of things. I think it was big that Julio was able to get that ball to drop in after Polanco. It's great, after Crawford is able to get that single to put on runners on first and third, because JP Crawford also stole a base. We'll talk about JP Crawford's base running in a second. But I thought one of the biggest plays in that inning was that Polanco's fly ball that scores Julio was not hit deep at all. It was huge that the Mariners got 2 runs out of that inning because Julio doesn't get a great jump on first base because he has to wait and see if that ball gets caught, right? Or
on second base.
Yeah, he was on second base because he stole second base. doesn't get a great look at that and has to make sure that ball gets drops down.
Yeah.
That's not a play that very many people score on. And that was a perfect throw from Angel Martinez, by the way. So I thought that was big. I will also say, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago where they scored 2 with the bases loaded. 2 runs there was disappointing because you had Tanner Bybee on the ropes. You had him on the ropes, and to only get a pair there, beggars can't be choosers, like we've said a bunch of times here. That felt disappointing. But it was also great to see Cal Raleigh has not looked like the same hitter for me for a little while, and that has to do with the fact that he was as good as any hitter in baseball for a little while. You know, he was due for some regression, but it was great to see him hook that ball down the line. It was great to see him drive that baseball into that corner to be able to score that run. It was encouraging to see that. The middle of the lineup today stunk.
Yeah.
After really Randy, the offense was really bad. Rowdy Tellez really struggled. But in particular, that first inning, it felt like only getting 2 runs there was a pretty big letdown, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Getting only 2. Do you want to go base running blunder or 9th inning?
Oh, let's talk just real quick about the base running blunder.
And then we'll do Trey Coffee and FanDuel, then we'll talk about the 9th inning.
Just real quick. JP Crawford is on one right now, and I don't want to say anything negative about my son, except for the fact that my son can't get picked off there. That is a huge mistake, and it is the one negative I have for JP Crawford this year. His base running this year has stunk. I know he gets the stolen base to get into scoring position in the first inning. He has made some big blunders on the bases, and when you don't score a ton of runs, those things add up. The only negative thing to say about JP Crawford, a 5-reach game and looking more and more like that leadoff hitter the Seattle Mariners need to be. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and Tanner Bybee has an elite pickoff move. He's already picked off 5 guys this year. That's a great move that he has, but that can't happen.
And so 2 things about that before we get talking about our partners here today. Number 1, if you watch that in slow motion, Cal Raleigh's on first base and JP's on second.
Yeah.
He right-handed turns like he's throwing to first, but then quickly throws to second. So it looks like JP thinks he's going to pick off Cal, but instead he's picking off JP at second. That shows you how good of a pickoff move that is from Tanner Bybee. And it shows you how much confidence he has in it, that when Randy was on first earlier in the game, he had already thrown over twice and tried to throw over again to try and get him, and Randy barely snuck back in there.
That's a great point. That's the first time I've seen that, by the way, that somebody has tried 3 pickoff moves. I have not seen that, and I watch a lot of baseball for my work, for just my hobbies. It's baseball.
Yeah.
I can't remember the disengagement rule actually being called. So
I know.
That's how good his move is and how much confidence he has in it. That being said, can't happen. Can't happen in second base.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, there's just no reason to get picked off there. I think there was 1 out at that point, and then they ended up walking the hitter who was up. I forget who it was. It would have been bases loaded, 1 out, and instead of it was first and second with 2 outs, which is a huge difference. Huge difference.
Massive.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about some Trey Coffee.
Okay.
All right, let's be real. Coffee isn't just a drink, it's a ritual, a lifeline, the thing that gets you from half asleep to fully functioning. And if it's that essential, why settle for anything less than amazing? That's where Trade Coffee comes in.
Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the day off for it. That's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee crafted just for you. Enter Trade.
Trade is a #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got the roast you'll love. Personally, I'm in on the beans. I know that the cups are really convenient. You can just pop it in and then go. I like going the beans. I like the grating sound, just the physical action of like grounding your own coffee, getting that filter in there, and then you have a pot to kind of sip on for the rest of the morning, especially when you're doing stuff at home for a lot of the day, like I am before I go to my radio show. So Trade Coffee is just the way it goes.
And right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers a 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TRADE.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month treat.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action.
FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. It's the best part about FanDuel is that the fact that you could be watching a game that has no significance to you, and if you feel like just laying down a responsible amount of money, you can have a little bit of interest in the game. It makes it a lot more fun to watch, and it's the best platform to use for sure. FanDuel is pretty great.
New to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we buried the lead a little bit here. Let's get to that ninth inning, because going into that ninth inning, it seemed very bleak, because in the eighth inning, what was it, Cade Smith at that point? He just mowed through the middle part of your order. So you had the prospects of 7, 8, 9 coming up against maybe not his best year, but one of the best closers in the game in Emmanuel Clase. So it did not seem very likely at that point, which is another reason why this win is so great. So Dom Canzone, it's a single as the first batter against Clase. Then Dylan Moore comes in for him, steals second base. Mastroboni takes a really questionable walk. Cole Young hits and then Cole Young hits the bunt.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the bunt. First, I was asking you, I'm actually okay with the bunt situation here. We're chatting in the studio before, or as the ninth inning is going on.
Yeah.
I'm saying, all right, I actually like the bunt in this situation, but am I like a little too eager to do it because it's a 100-mile-an-hour cutter and that thing is impossible to square up?
No, that's a really good point. That it's a really difficult one. I have to give Dan some credit because it'll get lost in the shuffle because the bunt ends up being so good.
Yeah.
The first bunt was not. The first bunt was popped up, and you could have said, oh man, this may not go very well. We don't want him to hit into a double play. We don't want to have it wasted. We could go. No, they had confidence in Cole Young laying it down, and I'm not surprised Cole Young ends up laying down a good bunt. I'm watching it again right now. It was hit pretty hard, but like, that's good bat to ball skills. That is a guy who recognizes pitches well, and I love that decision. It's normally not a decision I like, but when you have the guy who has gotten on base as often as you have, and then you have your two most important hitters coming up right after that guy who gets on base a whole heck of a lot, get those guys into scoring position. If you end up losing because of it, so be it. But give up the out there. Cole Young's just not a good enough hitter yet for you to say, swing away, young fella, against a guy with as good of stuff as Clase. I loved the decision to bunt there.
Yeah, I think the sacrifice bunt, and I know I've been kind of on my tour, so to speak, on how much I hate bunting. I don't like it with your competent big league hitters, shall I say. So the J.P. Crawfords, the Julios, the Cows, the Blancos, the Randys. I think those
never be sack bunting.
Those 5 players should never be sack bunting. However, I'm okay with a Cole Young, a Ben Williamson, a Mastroboni if he's coming in, any of those guys, right? Sure. I'm totally cool with that, especially if the next hitter up is one of those 5. Right. Yeah. And that is exactly the situation that we're in tonight. Quickly, I want to say, I didn't know this stat. Matthew's my guy here. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, Cleveland is 112-0 since 2024 when leading after 8 innings. I'm not going to fact check you on that. If that's the case, that is awesome. That's an even better win than I thought tonight. So thank you, Matthew. So
I believe it. Number one, Matthew's been a supporter of mine for a very long time. Congratulations on the sloppy seconds, buddy. But I remember some struggles from Clase, but I don't think he actually blew any saves.
Yeah.
So I think that's right.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And Clase is such a difficult guy to get to. I'm just going to steal your thing, your
Go.
thunder for a sec. Unsung heroes Dylan Moore.
All right, let's go.
Not only does he steal second base, not only does he steal second base, he gets to third on the bunt. That's as good of a jump as I have seen on a wild pitch. As good of a jump as I have seen. I want to give some credit. So Julio ends up striking out, and that's not good enough, and blah, blah, blah.
He missed a meatball, too. He
missed
should have
a
totally
down the middle.
Sent that to orbit, yes.
But somebody brought up a pretty good point.
Right here.
That if Julio doesn't foul off a couple of pitches, that play does not happen. Does not happen. So that's nice to see. The contact issues are not an issue with Julio Rodriguez. The swing decisions are an issue with Julio Rodriguez. And we saw some really bad swing decisions today. Really bad swing decisions. But it is big that he fouls them off. But Dylan Moore, that the jump that he got there, that was, to bring it back to a Nintendo game, that was you getting the perfect start on Mario Kart. That was you getting it exactly right when that green comes. That was huge to score that run. And then Jorge Polanco is just, he looks so much more comfortable with the plate. So much more comfortable.
And we talked about it yesterday. Like, him being right versus not is game changing for this offense. It makes this lineup look, instead of like it's either Julio and Cal or nothing, because JP is just going to get on at a really high clip, by the way. I think he's like 4th or 5th in on-base percentage in baseball, which is crazy. But, you know, that's what he does, and that's great. You need players like that. But he's not going to be the guy to drive in a bunch of runs, right? You need the Cals, the Julios to get going. And when they don't, your offense has looked terrible recently. Having another guy like Polanco, Randy's gotten hot recently. Those two guys kind of coming back up a little bit. It is so big for this offense. It lengthens your lineup extensively, and just you feel so much more confident in situations exactly like this. I told you, I felt confident with Polo in that spot.
Sure. Yeah, you were absolutely right. By the way, I'm just watching the bunt in slow motion. That was like a barrel for Cole Young. That was like right in the middle.
Give him a barrel on the barrel rate. Come on.
He did get it square in the middle. They're a little bit fortunate that third base wasn't playing in a little bit more there. I'll be honest with you, but he got it down. It worked out. It's all great. But yeah, it's just, and again, as critical as we have been about Dan Wilson, and I think justifiably so, this is what he deserves credit for keeping Jorge Polanco in the lineup so that he gets back into a repetition. It was almost like a spring training for Jorge Polanco when he was going through those scuffles. And that doesn't excuse that Jorge Polanco wasn't just a bad baseball player. He was one of the worst hitters in the entire sport in the month of May.
He had one of the worst Mariners months offensively ever, which is crazy.
It is crazy because we have seen some. I mean, I watched Jack Wilson, my man. I have seen a lot of really bad.
I watched
Colton Wong. I've watched James Jones, one of the worst hitters that I've ever seen. Fun little center fielder, but like I've seen some really bad stuff. But Jorge Polanco was atrocious, and that doesn't completely excuse it. But I give Wilson credit for saying, no, this guy's really important to us.
Yes.
We need to keep him in the lineup. I also still would have moved him down. I still would have made him the 7th hitter more often than not. But now you can hit him in the middle of the order again because he is comfortable hitting in the middle of the order. And I think, as frustrating as I am with Dan Wilson and stuff, by the way, Andres Munoz not used again. We will see how that command looks when he is finally used around the All-Star break, I guess. But
I don't think he's ever going to pitch in a game where the Mariners are losing.
They're not.
I don't think so, unfortunately.
And you know what? I think that's disappoining.
That is disappointing.
Look, and credit to Casey Legumina, who could easily be unsung hero by handling that 9th inning. And
Kowar, it's Kowar. It was Legumina in the 8th, and then Kowar in the 9th. Yes.
100%. Yeah, you're right. Both of those guys deserve their flowers.
They pitched well.
And so did Carlos Vargas. So the bullpen did their job for sure. Gabe Spire, that wild pitch, that wasn't so great. But, I don't think Gabe Spire's stuff looked bad. And I think if he asked Big Dumper, he would say, maybe I want to smother that baseball. You know,
I was going to say, I'm a little surprised they didn't call it a pass ball.
Yeah. They talk about a guy who gets the benefit of the doubt in those situations for sure. And justifiably so, I guess. But, I think if Big Dumper was honest, he'd say, I probably should have smothered that or at least blocked it and kept it in front of me. But that just has to do with high expectations. It's like when Julio doesn't rob a homer. You ask him, he said, I should have caught that. And I was like, well, no, you're not Superman, man. Like, it's okay that occasionally the ball gets over the fence.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bullpen did a nice job today. And gosh, this is a big win. This is just, these are the games you have to win between now and the end of the year. Like, these are the type of games that you just can't afford to lose. You have to win series. You have to go on a run here where you win a bunch of series in a row, especially against the Guardians team that we talked about yesterday is not very good right now. Is not very good at all. Well, you face their 2 top starting pitchers, in my personal opinion, and you get 2 wins.
Yeah.
That's great. Now you can be selfish and go get that sweep.
Really quick before we kind of look forward to tomorrow, Joe Jerome here. If we get Polo back online, I love the 1-4. How would y'all feel about Cal in the 2 spot? I'm going to go really quick here. I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but anyone who is tuning in today for the first time this series, I love the way the lineup is constructed right now. I'm a huge fan of Crawford in the leadoff, Julio in the 2-hole. Then you got Cal in the 3-hole, Polanco 4th, and Rosarena 5. That's 5 good hitters right there.
Yeah.
And I think all of those spots are very conducive to those players. You got JP, who's just an on-base machine. Julio, who is kind of like a second leadoff hitter to me in terms of just like the spark to start things instead of the guy to hit everyone in, which I think that's where he's at his best. Then he could steal bases, score on hits, all that kind of stuff. Cal makes sure you get an at-bat in the first inning and just trying to get him as many as possible, as close to the top of the order as possible, but also having him in a high-leverage spot. So I think 3 is perfect for him. Polanco right now I feel really comfortable with guys on base. And Randy, like, he's just going to continue to get on base at a high clip. And then I trust him in big situations. So I love the 1-5 the way it is right now.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 1-5 as well. And the reason why I don't want Big Dumper hitting ahead of Julio is that it's a little bit too conducive to force outs at second base. I want somebody who can run a little. Now, JP Crawford is by no means one of the fastest players in baseball.
No, but he gets on at such a high clip that you need him at the leadoff
spot. Get on in a high clip and can do enough that he's going to beat out or, make those choppers. The problem is that Big Dumper is fast for a catcher, but fast for a catcher doesn't mean fast. There's there's too many chances for those force out plays there. So I would rather have, and I will be honest, I kind of get the feeling that Cal Raleigh doesn't love hitting in the 2-hole. It's just I want to hit 3rd or 4th. I want to be the guy who gets the most chances to drive people in. Yeah. So that's why I think that they should be doing what they do. But 3rd or 4th is totally fine with me. It's ultimately doesn't matter that much. Like, it's just all that matters is those guys 1-5 are competent. If those guys are competent, the Seattle Mariners have a great chance. The 6 through 9 still needs a lot of improvement, but it sure was fun to see the bottom of the order have a massive moment in the 9th inning today.
Yeah, and that's a good point because it was 7, 8, 9 that was up. And Canzone, like, I've been pleasantly surprised by him. I'm as much as a hater. I'll put my hand up right now. Yeah, I'm a massive Canzone hater. I was not excited for him coming back onto this team, but the dude has hit ever since he come up. Yeah, I get it's been only 4 games now,
something like that.
But that's all we can react to at this point. So really appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. We got one more tomorrow, 1:10 first pitch. It's Emerson Hancock versus, I think, Luis L. Ortiz for the Guardians. So there's a big chance if Emerson comes out and shoves that this team could be talking about a sweep and really putting the bad juju behind them in the last week or so.
Yep, and then you got Boston right after that, who is I think a similar talent level team to Seattle. Yeah. So I think you have a chance to do some real damage on this homestand. And considering they were 4-11, I believe, in their last 15 home games, they really needed to start doing what they're doing. So this is great.
Really appreciate you guys. One more tomorrow. Let's go get the dub. Go Mariners. We'll talk to you tomorrow.